Hello there, folks. I can determine the slope and the y-intercept of a line. You guys had some practice with slope yesterday, so hopefully you're pretty good at that by now. We'll continue to get better over the next couple days. Okay, but we're also going to talk about the y-intercept today. We also want to be able to say by the end of today, I can graph linear equations using the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, you guys have been graphing linear equations just using XY tables, and some of you really hate those. I didn't tell you this before, but there's actually a faster way. So here we go. I should have kept that there. First thing we want to talk about is what the heck is the y-intercept? Okay, it's very simple. The y-intercept is the y-coordinate of the point where your graph crosses the y-axis. Let's break this down. Okay, this is the x-axis. You all know that. This is the y-axis. Every line we've graphed up to this point has just been a straight line. Every line that we've graphed up to this point crosses over the y-axis at some point, right? Okay, well, the point at which your line crosses the y-axis, actually the point that I've drawn here, that is your y-intercept. It's where your line intersects the y-axis. That is what the y-intercept is. It's actually a very useful tool when you're trying to write an equation. Okay? Second thing, slope-intercept form. It's a specific form of an equation. It's an equation written in the form y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope. That means this guy is always your slope. The number before the x is always your slope. And b is always the y-intercept. So b is always going to represent where your line intersects the y-axis. Okay? So let's start out here. You guys talked a little bit about this yesterday in your inquiry lesson, fortunately, so some of this you might have already figured out. Some of this is very simple. State the slope and y-intercept of the graph of y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Okay, I told you. This equation, fortunately, is already in the form we want it to be in. Y equals mx plus b. Okay, x is just itself. What is in place of m is this guy right here, 1/2. So your slope equals 1/2. Remember, we write slope as m. And very simply, what is in the spot of b? A positive 3. So b equals 3. You answered the question. We stated our slope. We stated our y-intercept. Okay, this one was easy because it's already in slope-intercept form. Now let's move on. Same question. State the slope and y-intercept of the graph of this equation. Okay, the difference between number 1 and number 2 is one thing. You don't have y by itself. Okay, let me tell you this, and I hope you're all listening. You absolutely must solve for y, because if you don't, your equation is not currently in slope-intercept form. This is in negative mx plus y equals b form. Okay, that's not what we're going for. Let me erase that. We want our equation to be in slope-intercept form. This form right here, which means y is by itself. You get everything else on the other side. So think hard, folks. How do we get rid of the negative 4x that's right here? Well, let's add 4x. And remember, we've got to do it. I'll put your dots down the middle. We've got to do it on both sides of the equation. Okay? So those guys cancel out. You're left with just a y right here. Y equals... I'm not very good with this eraser yet. Y equals... Negative 10 and 4x are not like terms. So do me a favor and just write this as 4x, because it's a positive 4x, minus 10. Your equation is now in slope-intercept form. What number comes before the x? That's your slope. I should have written it. And what number comes on its own in the position for b? Negative 10. So to answer the question, you say your y-intercept is negative 10, your slope is positive 4, and you're done. Let's keep moving. All right, we are asked to graph this equation using the slope and the y-intercept. So I was very kind to you, and I gave you the very simple 4-step process right here, right next to the problem we're doing. So it's going to walk you right through the whole process. Use this in your homework, or excuse me, in your classwork tomorrow if you need it. Okay, it's going to walk you through the process every time. It says make sure y is by itself, and make sure that y is positive, okay, on one side of your equal sign. Fortunately, we already have this. This is already in slope-intercept form. That's very nice. Second step, find the y-intercept and graph it. Remember, your y-intercept is b, so b equals, and it is positive 4, right there. So let's put it on the graph. B is at positive 4. Now, step 3, it says find the slope. And of course, remember that is m. Your slope is the number right before the x, negative 3. Don't leave out that negative. That's very important. And it says write it as a fraction and count it out. So let's do this first. Your slope is negative 3, and to write it as a fraction, all you have to do is put it over 1. So your slope is negative 3 over 1. Write it as a fraction and count it out starting from the y-intercept. So start at the y-intercept. This is very important. Start from this point that you already put on the graph, and use your slope to find the next point on your graph. So our rise, remember slope is rise over run, right? So if the slope of our line is this guy, our next point must be down 3, because it's negative 3, 1, 2, 3, and right 1, since it's a positive 1. Guess what? You just found another point on our line. Now you can draw the line that should have went through the point. It's much harder on this Mimeo, I'm telling you. And now you have your line. Oh, Mr. Dudek violated an important rule. Make sure you have at least 3 points. So really I should have started here. I should have counted down 3 and over 1 and marked at this point. And then I should have went down 3 again and over 1. And look at that. The line actually should have been way over here. So it should have come down through here and through there. That's actually a much better line. Well done, Mr. Dudek. That's much better. Okay, so folks, that's how you graph a line once it's in slope-intercept form using the slope and the y-intercept. All you have to do is plot your y-intercept first, then use your slope to find your next 2 points. Okay? Very simple. I'm going to ask that you do number 4 on your own, mimic it after number 3, and we're on to number 5, our last one. It says graph this guy. So once again, I think the fastest route is to do it the way we did number 3, using our 4 steps here. Step 1 says make sure y is by itself. If y is not by itself, guess what? You've got to solve for y. So let's get rid of the x that's on the side of y. Subtract it from both sides. We're then left with a positive 3y equals, and I like to put the x first, so negative x, and that's a positive 6, plus 6. Now to get y by itself, that's 3 times y, we've got to divide by 3 on both sides of my equation. So now I'm left with, sorry, I'm going to bring it over here. I'm just left with y by itself, which is what we want. And then everything is getting divided by 3. So this is a negative 1x, isn't it? So negative 1 divided by 3 is negative 1/3 x. And then plus 6 divided by 3. Well, that's just positive 2. Okay, so that 3 has to go to the first guy and to the second guy. Alright? So now you have your equation. That was only step 1. Step 2 says find the y-intercept and graph it. Well, you know full well that your y-intercept is this guy right here. Since our equation is in slope-intercept form, our y-intercept is positive 2. Let's graph it. There it is. Then we're going to find our slope, which you know it's the number right before x. So m is negative 1/3, right? So let's use this guy, just like it says here, and start counting from the y-intercept. Sorry, I should have given that negative to the 1 on top. So let's go down 1 and right 3. And then we'll go down 1 again and right 3 more. And there's our 3 points. I don't even know that I want to attempt to draw this line, but I'm going to try. Yours should really be neater than mine. Make sure you put the arrows on the ends of your line, okay, because that line goes on forever and ever. There's your line. This line right here is the graphical representation of this equation, okay? So I think we're doing all right so far. We're going to talk more about this in class tomorrow.